Okay, it's time to, look, I guess it's going to kind of be a culture war thing, but at the same time, it's not going to be a culture war thing. Let's talk briefly about this WNBA thing. Not that we're going to discuss WNBA things very often on this show. So that's the women's professional basketball. If we're going to call it that, they recently had an all-star game. And these morons ran out there in shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us." And of course, everybody knows by now, it's been reported, widely reported, that the WNBA lost $40 million last year alone. They lose money every year. It is a charity for lesbians. It's not a profitable league. Now, I am not doing this segment to make fun of the WNBA. They beclown themselves enough without any effort from me whatsoever. I am doing this for you. And this is more for younger people, but I guess some older people may need this lesson as well. There's a lot of people that didn't have fathers, apparently. Here's how it works. Here's how pay works, the world works, business works, capitalism works, economics works. I don't know how you want to put it, but here's how it works. You have to provide value to your employer. The value you provide to your employer will be split in some way with you. He's going to take a cut of it. After all, he's the employer. You're going to take a cut of it. I hope you get the most you can. I'm always rooting for you. You're the employee. But you must provide value. Now, do you know what determines your income level? It's not how good you think you are, how important you think you are, how necessary your job is. That actually has nothing to do with what you make. Here's what will determine what you make. The scarcity of your marketable skills. The scarcity of your marketable skills. I love a good fast food cheeseburger as much as the next man. And I value the people, mostly younger people, who work in that profession. That's hard work. You don't make any money. But anyone can do it. That's why you make minimum wage, because it's not very scarce. Anyone can do it. This applies to other professions that we value even more. Teachers, cops even. He deserves to make more. He teaches history. A lot of people can teach history. I'm not dismissing teaching history. It's wonderful. I love you history teachers out there. But a lot of people can do it, so you're not going to make a lot of money. That brings me to the WNBA. There are a lot of people who can awkwardly saunter down the court and brick a layup. That is not something people crave, employers crave. That's why the league loses $40 million a year. Nobody watches. Nobody cares. Watching women play basketball has always been and will always be completely embarrassing, because basketball is it's a sport purely about athleticism. Women can do gymnastics or beach volleyball, even better. But basketball, it's about running and jumping. It requires athleticism, and women simply aren't as athletic as men are. Therefore, nobody watches. Therefore, the league loses tens of millions of dollars a year. Now, I realize the league is full of a bunch of entitled, spoiled brats who have never had a father who will teach them that conversation that I just had with you. Nevertheless, facts remain as they are. You will be paid on the scarcity of your marketable skills. That actually brings me perfectly to Colbert. Stephen Colbert lost his job. Millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Gone now. Why? Stephen Colbert wasn't funny. He wasn't funny. You didn't tune in. He hated your guts. He hated my guts. And so we turned the television channel off. Now, he has a huge staff. Like 200 people work for that show. Huge staff of people work for the show. Show loses money. Therefore, bye-bye. You see, anybody can go on television and not be funny. Most people go on television and aren't funny at all. You don't get to keep your job that way. The scarcity of your marketable skills. Create value for your employer. You'll always have a job. You'll always make some money. All right? I hope that summed that up. Now, that's enough for the culture war little segment. Anyway, at least I have fresh olive oil. I mean, that's something. It's not going to protect me from AI, but it is delicious. Thanks to Farm Fresh 246, I have fresh olive oil all the time. Your olive oil is old and garbage, and it's not your fault. It's because you buy it at the grocery store like I always did. I just walk down the aisle and grab a bottle of olive oil. Oh, this looks like it's from Italy. I mean, we all do the same thing, but it's all old. Months, years old. You don't even know how bad it is until you try one bottle from farmfresh246.com. They will send you for free a $39 bottle, so you don't have to take my word for it. Go try it. You have to pay like $1 for the shipping or something like that. Farmfresh246.com. Lighten the mood. Next. You know what's weird to me is the reaction to Stephen Colbert getting canceled. And you know what, Megyn, I was going to play this montage of everyone in the media freaking out about it, but I'm not even going to bother because I know you've seen it. Everyone's seen it. It's a late night show. Can you explain why they're mourning the guy as if he's dying from cancer? What did I miss here?
I know. It is the most absurd overreaction. It's television. You'll survive. You'll be fine. But it really does just prove the real reason he was there, which was not to entertain or to amuse, but to try to take down Trump, just be a Republican antagonist. That's what he became. That's what his relevance was. And in the end, they're fearful that that's why he's getting fired. That's actually not exactly why he's getting fired. That's why he failed, because he wasn't adhering to the core mission. No one wanted to watch his attempt to be Adam Schiff every night in the late night slot, and it didn't work out as a commercial matter. And so now their hero, their chief antagonist of the left, is getting a smaller platform, like I guess a podcast or something else, and that's just not okay with them. They're used to dominating cultural institutions and seeing everyone roll over with it.
Megyn, you are obviously a seasoned veteran of this industry. You've been at all the major players. You know all the behind the scenes stuff. So can you help me understand how that can happen? And when I say that, how can you allow your late night comedy show, everyone remembers Leno and Letterman and Carson before him, how can you let that comedy show turn into just a partisan show if for no other reason that's bad business, right? Half the country hates your guts. That's bad business. Even Michael Jordan said Republicans buy shoes too. What happened?
It was too ideologically important to them to try to kill Trump, rhetorically. When he won in 2016, no one thought he could do it. They were still so shell-shocked. They thought, oh my God, this must be a racist, misogynistic, xenophobic country. We're not who we thought we were. And so that's when truly like the TDSers, the chief TDSers, and Stephen Colbert's right at the top of the list, started really turning and leaning hard into more politics as their shows. And I mean, I've been on Colbert. I've been on all these late night shows, literally every single one of them. And even in the initial couple of years of Trump, Colbert was doing more politics, but he wasn't full politics. He would still start the show every night with a celebrity, like an A-list celebrity or two, and then he'd throw in like a news person like me or a politics person maybe last. But the morph happened over the Trump presidency and then thereafter, once Trump ran to get the presidency again, where he just devoted himself entirely to trying to defeat him. And the network brass was completely on the same page. They're as left as he is, Jesse. They're not further to the right judging him. They're like, go, Stephen, go.
But even understanding that, obviously this is a big boy network, CBS. You're going to have shareholders. You're going to have, even if you're the most left-wing, filthy Maoist commie in the world and you're CEO of CBS, the bottom line still determines your bonus, right?
Yes, but they didn't care. I mean, it was, for a while there, they could just fool themselves that it was, just temporary and it was important. And then by the time it had settled into like the new reality, they were all doing it. Even Jimmy Fallon got way more political after Trump became president than he ever had been before. And Kimmel, 100%, Kimmel used to just be fun and funny. That's how he and Adam Carolla got to be great friends. And then he turned her, like they were all doing it. It was like they were on Seth Meyers too, a late night mission, John Oliver, to bring Trump down. So by that point, were they really going to have the only guy who'd been the worst of all of them suddenly just go back to telling jokes? It was too late. They'd already alienated half the country. It's the same thing with CNN when it decided a couple of years ago to try to be fair and balanced again. Yeah, look how that worked out. It's too late. You already kissed half your audience goodbye. They're not coming back.
Wow. It's wild how suicidal these people are. Okay, let's change the subject because I'm dying to get your honest take on the Russia hoax stuff. I say honest, not that's difficult for you, but I don't want to blow smoke. I haven't been blowing smoke. You know, I believe Barack Obama should go to prison for the rest of his life for this. I'm also not naive, and I don't think that's going to happen. But can somebody big burn for this, Megyn? Because somebody really needs to burn for this, whoever that may be. Is that possible, or is that just ridiculous wishful thinking?
No, I've been loving your clips on this, by the way. It's like makes me feel better when I watch the Jesse Kelly clips on this story. I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. There is a huge scandal here. It is a very real scandal, and it's actually truly shocking. Whether they're going to be able to get somebody convicted criminally is a different question. Not everything that's horrible is a crime or within the statute of limitations. And in President Obama's case, thanks to Trump's case, he will be recognized as having immunity for virtually all of his official acts. So that will likely save him. But I don't know the full extent of what they've got. You know, Tulsi's revealing everything drip, drip, drip. And I don't know whether, I can say that the Obama immunity is not going to help John Brennan or James Comey, who might be helped by the statutes of limitations on the potential crimes that they may have committed, including possibly perjury. I was just looking at it. The perjury statute of limitations federally is 5 years, but you can get it tolled, meaning extended. It won't start to run until later if, for example, you can show the person who perjured themselves was then responsible for covering up the truth such that it was not discovered until much later. And look, with this document that just came out, this House report, that was put in a vault in Langley for the last 9 years or however long it's been, 5 years since 2020. You could make a clever argument, but I think it would require clever arguments. It wouldn't be a straight cut route from they did dastardly deeds to they're now getting criminally charged, never mind convicted. Okay, well,
Megyn, your legal chops obviously far exceed mine because I'm a moron. Does Pam Bondi have those chops? Is this something she's going to be able to do? You know as well as I do the type of lawyers, Clapper and Brennan and Comer. You know the type of lawyers they're going to get. These are not going to be spring chickens, and they're not going to be idiots. They're going to be very capable people. Do we have the guns on our side to make this happen?
I don't know that. Pam Bondi wouldn't be doing it herself. She would have some deputy over there do it, and eventually it would get argued and appealed and go up on appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we've got a great Solicitor General. That guy's a and he's got a very winning record in front of the Supreme Court. But it depends. I feel like I'm firing a gun right now with no bullets in it because I don't really know what they haven't even mentioned what the potential crimes could be. All we really know is that they've referred John Brennan, the head of the CIA under Obama, and James Comey, the head of FBI under Obama and then Trump, to the DOJ for possible prosecution. They've said almost nothing about the Comey charges, and the Brennan charges seem to be related to allegedly false statements he made about the Steele dossier, what role it played in the intelligence assessment, which has been completely blown up this week, thanks to Tulsi, as just a big pack of lies, and what he knew about it. Beyond those two, what we're seeing now for the first time is that Barack Obama orchestrated it all, that he was the one who took an intelligence community that was about to respond. The Russia interference really wasn't that bad. It was kind of milquetoast, and changed it at his direction to, it was huge, and it was all done to help Trump. And today or yesterday, we learned that the only justification they had for that latter conclusion was the discredited Steele dossier, which they knew was but proceeded with anyway, and 3 other sources, which, if it's possible, were even less supported than the Steele dossier. And the latest document dump shows that multiple CIA agents went to John Brennan to say, you can't put that in there. You cannot say that Putin interfered to help Trump. We don't have that. And you cannot rely on the Steele dossier. That thing's totally not credible. And Brennan looked at him and said, one of them, and said, but it has the whiff of truth, doesn't it? It seems like it could be true. That's how the whole country spent years with Russiagate, Jesse. I mean, the whiff of truth.
What an ugly place to be. Okay, speaking of an ugly place to be, before we let you go, the Epstein stuff. It's not surprising to me. I told everybody as soon as Trump started telling everyone to shut up and move on and shut up and move on and stop talking about this, you idiot, I knew that he was in there somewhere. They have a mess on their hands. They overpromised, they underdelivered, and now a portion, whatever size it is, of his base, and frankly, people who aren't in his base, they want the goods that may not even exist. How do they navigate these rough waters from here?
I know. I wish Trump had just released whatever documents he could right at the beginning. The Epstein scandal is not about Trump. It is about a man who was a disgusting, perverted criminal predator who, along with his top emissary, Ghislaine Maxwell, recruited young girls, 14 and possibly younger, we're awaiting more details, to come to his townhouse and to perform sex acts on him. That's what the scandal's about. And the question is, was it beyond Jeffrey Epstein? Who was it with? If there were other powerful men he provided this service to, who were they? And how young? Like, those are very relevant questions. That's what we want to know. But the left has decided that it's all about Trump. Trump gave them a window by being so cagey about releasing the documents. And now the Wall Street Journal, is doing a drip, drip, drip of, here's Trump's saucy letter to Epstein on his birthday. Trump denies it's him, and it's very weird, but it sounds like something like an aide would have written. And with, he's in the Epstein files, with which Elon Musk already told us. I mean, everybody knows that the two men had a friendship for 15 years. What does in the Epstein files mean? Is he in there as having had a sexual interlude with an underage girl? You don't think Joe Biden's DOJ would have released that? Joe Biden's FBI or Jim Comey at some point? There's no way he's in there in any meaningful way. I just don't believe it. But I can't say the same about rich donors, connected friends of his, and possibly of those on the left. That I'd really like to see, and I don't think we will.
The great Megyn Kelly, everybody, go catch her show. Subscribe to her YouTube. It's awesome, by the way. Megyn, I love you. You're the best. I ever tell you about the time Pure Talk came down to see me down here in Houston? Now, I've had a lot of meetings with different advertisers and partners at the show. I've never had a meeting where they brought Medal of Honor recipients. Pure Talk and the veterans community, they're like this. When Pure Talk does profitable or non-profitable things, I guess I'll say, when they give back, like corporations do, Pure Talk cares about the vets, getting them back on their feet, medical care. They gave them flags for Independence Day. On top of providing great service, mobile phone service, Pure Talk cares about the people we care about. You don't need Verizon, you don't need AT&T, you don't need T-Mobile. Switch to the cell phone company that actually cares about this country. You can get a new phone or keep your phone. They make it easy at Pure Talk. puretalk.com/JesseTV.
The precedent has been set. I can show you Donald Trump's mugshot. The second the communists took power, they had Donald Trump arrested in every jurisdiction in the United States of America. They tried to blow his head off and send him to prison for 90 years. So don't tell me former presidents are untouchable. No, sir. The president of the United States of America cooked the books on his orders of intelligence in order to create a false narrative about the incoming president who was about to be sworn in. He used the Central Intelligence Agency like it was the DNC. He used the FBI like it was the DNC. He used the DNI like it was the DNC, politicking with his office. That is a crime so severe, Barack Obama should never see the light of day again. He deserves a trial a fair trial, a public trial, because that's what the American people deserve. And then he deserves to go to prison for the rest of his natural life. And not just because I hate him, but because the next time we get a scumbag like that in the Oval Office, he has to look at Barack Obama rotting in Fort Leavenworth and say to himself, well, I guess the CIA probably isn't my political arm, so maybe I should back off of that. This moment, I'm not just saying this for radio purposes, is everything for this.
Well, there's one thing to want it, and there's one thing for me to run my mouth on TV about it. It's another thing entirely to actually get it. And as I've explained, I'm a little jaded on that. Joining me now, my friend, somebody probably a little bit more jaded than I am, FBI whistleblower, co-host of the American Radicals podcast, Steve Friend. Okay, Steve, I'm not naive enough to think that Barack Obama's going to jail. I understand the way our country works, the way accountability works here, and I've explained that to people. But in your mind, is anyone?
Well, this is my tremendous concern here, because you just got to go back about 3 weeks to when the DOJ effectively punted on the Epstein question, when we had a fundamental question there. And it's outside of even the abuse of children question, which should be abhorrent and disgusting to everyone. But the fundamental question there was, do we in fact have a two-tiered system of justice where the rest of us get held accountable for things we even didn't do if we took a guided tour through the Capitol, and the elite pedophile rapists can just do whatever they want to whoever they want? And the DOJ effectively voted present. So we didn't get that answer adjudicated. Now we have a second bite of the apple here, and my concern is perhaps this is an effort afoot by the Department of Justice, by the FBI, to get off the X, get out of the spotlight from the Epstein concerns. But what they've done now is paint themselves in another corner, because the same question exists. Do we have a two-tiered system of justice? And the onus is on the Department of Justice to provide us that answer and to go forward with an effective and smooth and quick investigation, because check your calendars here. It's already at the end of July 2025. We don't have the time to wait for years on end until a Pharaoh who knows not Joseph is back in the White House and turning the FBI and his political enemies.
Okay, Steve, let's rewind and actually do this chronologically then. The Epstein stuff. What is your take on the overpromising and the under-delivering? I have a theory, and it's only a theory, I don't have any intel on this, that Trump knew his name was in there, whether it was added after the fact, which I believe, or not. Trump knew his name was in there. He knew something else was coming. He wanted to move people off of it and say, hey, drop this thing and let it go. But that's just my theory. What's your take?
I think that's a fair theory, and it's completely plausible, because we had a lame duck period after Donald Trump was elected president the second time. And we know for a fact from other whistleblowers, like my buddy Garrett O'Boyle, that there were documents being destroyed over at the FBI. Who's to say that they weren't manipulated? But I want to go back to what you mentioned about having promises, making promises of having a deliverable, and then on a specific delivery date, and not doing that. And it's not limited to just Epstein. We were promised information about the January 6th involvement from personnel at the FBI, about the January 5th/6th pipe bomber, about the Dobbs leak, about the White House cocaine. The list just seems to go on, and they're failing to deliver on these, and kind of come around to the belief that the word transparency is a code word for people on the GOP and the MAGA. I mean, the liberal and the Democrat and the communists, they like to use democracy. That's their code word for things I like. If you don't like what I like, you don't like democracy. My fear is that transparency has the exact same hold for the MAGA right in this country, where they claim to be transparent, but they're not really being transparent with what we want them to be. And that should be enormously concerning to us, because there will never be a time where they're in charge forever. This is the opportunity to actually turn this stuff over. And to the Epstein stuff, like, if Donald Trump is in fact on that list, or one of his buddies, or if there's foreign relations or intelligence purposes, whatever the justification is for not turning that information over, you have to end that justification with the following phrase: so that's why I let the elite pedophile rapists go free. And you cannot sign me up for that culture or that country. I don't care if it destroys our culture. I don't care if it destroys our country. Our culture and our country deserve to go down the toilet bowl if that in fact is true.
Steve, would you explain, before we move back to the other subject, would you explain in a law enforcement, some guy experienced in this terms, why there's not an actual list for people? You know, we like to use that term, but there's boxes and boxes of files, but not a list.
Well, that would be a work product, a list. I mean, I don't think that Jeffrey Epstein kept a Rolodex where he said, these are the pedophile cohorts that I have, and I like to maintain this. This would be a work product that would be generated by investigators going through and looking and cataloging the video and the travel footage and conducting interviews and subpoenaing records, and it would be collected, and you would have a list of individuals who are of interest or potentially criminal masterminds or engaging in felonious activity. It would essentially be derivative of a proper investigation. It's not like any sort of black book existed, and if it did, he would possibly be the worst criminal of all time. I mean, you don't take notes of a criminal conspiracy unless you want to go to prison.
All right, let's switch back to the other big old mess on our hands. James Comey's catching a bunch of flack right now, and I mean, who knows whether he goes down or not, but it almost bothers me that it seems like Christopher Wray is missing all this stuff as if he didn't have anything to do with any of it.
Christopher Wray, apparently he's Voldemort. We can't say his name anymore. And look, I just want to raise the concern that all of the whistleblowers who came forward during Joe Biden's administration were all complaining about events that were going on during the Christopher Wray tenure at the FBI, which leads me to a couple of different suspicions. When Kash Patel, Dan Bongino got into leadership, they were completely bubble wrapped and ensconced by people who were there and whispering sweet nothing to their ear saying, let's go show you the James Comey room, because he was sort of outside the statute of limitations, not really grabbable. But Christopher Wray, we have radical traditional Catholic intelligence products. We have the January 6th abuses. We have parents at school board meetings being surveilled. All of this is at his feet, and he has lied, and provably so, perjured himself. I want his name out there, and he's just sort of evaded attention. I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay. The FBI, I know there are a lot of very evil people still working inside of that building. There's no question about it. Have we gotten rid of any of them? Have there been any positive reforms? Have you seen anything good coming from inside of that building? Please tell me yes.
Well, when it comes to the personnel matters, they certainly have gone the exact opposite direction of what I would like to see. And that would be the promotion of Stephen Jensen, who was the effective warlord of January 6th, the section chief of the domestic terrorism operations section. He architected how the FBI did that entire thing. He's been promoted multiple times. He's now the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. I have it on good authority. He's actually going to be promoted again back into headquarters situation. Brian Driscoll, who was the acting director before Kash Patel took the helm, who refused to hand over the list of personnel who were involved, inappropriately so, with January 6th to the Department of Justice. He's been promoted. Spencer Evans, who went after personnel who refused to get the experimental gene juice jabbed into their arm, he's been promoted and moved over to headquarters. So this list continues to grow. It's tremendously concerning. And I can only throw it back to the most benign and innocent reason for that is, and I think that there was a erroneous approach as it came to leadership when Kash and Dan got in there, and they went in trying to win hearts and minds with the presupposition falsely that a lot of good men and women work at the FBI and they just need to be restored to rigorous obedience to the Constitution. But unfortunately, they've been weighed, measured, and found wanting in that regard, and they just stood by and just followed orders. And they are the snakes behind the scenes that are effectively getting those guys distracted from their job of delivering on the mandate the American people sent last November of wanting this agency brought to heel and completely de-weaponized.
Steve, Pam Bondi, I know that she's been a disappointment, to put it mildly, so far, but do we think that she has what it takes to take down a powerful, a John Brennan, a James Comey? Does she have what it takes?
Well, she already passed on the Epstein stuff 3 weeks ago. I don't think she gets a second bite of the apple here, particularly because it involves her boss, the President of the United States, and the fact that the Department of Justice and the Intelligence Committee tried to run a coup against his first presidency. This is her opportunity, and it cannot be, we're going to bring on a special prosecutor, we're going to drag this out into 2029. At the end of the day, it'll be too late to do anything, because that's always how it is, just so conveniently. The American people deserve answers on this specific Russiagate matter, and they deserve them in a timely fashion in a way that we can actually adjudicate justice and answer the question of, do we have this two-tier system of justice or not? And if the answer is yes, then she's atop an agency that is in charge of that two-tiered system. And that should be something that we are all fearful of, because you never know whose hands it's going to fall into next.
Steve, thank you, brother, as always. I want to talk to you about feeling good every day. That's what Chalk will do for you. It's what it's done for me. I don't think I've ever taken anything for 3+ years. I take a male vitality stack from Chalk every day, over 3 years now. You know how incredible it must be to get me to do something like that? I travel with it now. Natural herbal supplements are a path forward for us. For those of us a bit jaded when it comes to things like the medical community, for those of us aware of the free-falling testosterone in this country, Chalk is our solution. The anti-communists at Chalk, whether you're a man, woman, young, old, they have something that will have you feeling better every single day. And they have a 17.76, about that, 17.76% discount on subscriptions for the life of them. Chalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back.
America is the country that started the AI race. And as President of the United States, I'm here today to declare that America is going to win it. The reason the last administration was so eager to regulate and restrict AI was so they could limit this technology to just a few large companies, allowing them to centralize it, censor it, control it, weaponize it. This is the exact opposite of my approach. The American people do not want woke Marxist lunacy in the AI models, and neither do other countries. From now on, the U.S. government will deal only with AI that pursues truth, fairness, and strict impartiality. We're not going to go through the craziness that we've gone through for the last 4 years.
Sure sounds good. We have to ask Joe about it because I don't know what the heck he's talking about. Joining me now, Joe Allen, author of the wonderful book, prophetic book, Dark Eon. Okay, Joe, first of all, what did the Biden administration do or try to do? What did Trump undo? Explain this to me like I'm 5.
Well, Jesse, in the Biden administration, you had a push very similar to what you would see, say, out of Davos, the World Economic Forum, or maybe more UN-affiliated organizations. They sought basically to harness the power of AI, but also to steer it in a very liberal direction. And the most powerful models were being produced and are still being produced by Google, by OpenAI, by Anthropic, and all of those companies, like most companies in Silicon Valley, have very much a kind of left-leaning tendency. And so the AIs ended up being, quote unquote, woke. That you remember the cartoonish outputs from Google's Gemini, where people were asking for the founding fathers or people were asking for Vikings, and it would bring like this racially diverse cast. It was just like a cartoon that was mentioned in the executive order signed as Trump announced the AI action plan from the White House. But that is what he's talking about when he's talking about combating woke AI. And also worth mentioning that collusion between the Biden administration, or that deal that seemed to be inevitable should Harris have gotten in, between the big companies like Microsoft, like Google, and OpenAI. I think that would have been the outcome. So what's happening under the Trump administration, for better or worse, I am not personally optimistic, is that he's extended the kind of privileges of government endorsement and contracts more towards startups and companies like Palantir, founded by Peter Thiel, now run by Alex Karp, or like the suite of AI companies that Mark Andreessen's investment house, Andreessen Horowitz, are promoting.
Okay, why aren't you optimistic?
Well, it just depends on what kind of life you want to live. Do you want to live a life that it's dominated by devices? Do you want to live a life in which a significant proportion, or maybe even the majority of your population, looks to artificial intelligence for what is and isn't real? And, going out from there, do you want to move into a future like Elon Musk is envisioning, or like most of the guys that these frontier AI labs are talking about, in which humans basically merge with the machines in various ways, whether it be prosthetics and brain interfaces, or whether it be something like wearable biometric devices and exoskeletons. In any case, the sci-fi future, I oftentimes say there's no real conspiracy other than the broad conspiracy to make science fiction real life, and it's not a world I want to live in.
Okay, can you tell me, you see these internet rumors about AI turning on people, potentially turning on people, doing things to protect itself. Is that internet stupid rumor fodder, or are we actually seeing this? And I ask because I know the military is starting to implement this stuff.
Yes, it is happening. Most of those stories, for instance, the widely publicized story that came out of an Anthropic lab about an engineer who was blackmailed with evidence that he had a mistress, right? He was going to shut the machine down, and the machine threatened to blackmail him. That did occur, but it occurred in Anthropic's internal labs. So they were testing it, and it started doing that. It also started doing all these other things that were very strange and unusual. It began, I think, speaking in Sanskrit and talking about universal bliss and cosmic consciousness, something to that effect. And so, but these things are happening. And the point of all of these tests and the lesson to be learned is that by their very nature, AI systems make their own decisions. They are kind of de facto out of control. You can put guardrails on them. You can train them in ways that keep them more under control. But if an AI system is worth its salt, it's going to have a degree of freedom. It's going to have independence. And so that's how you end up in these sorts of situations. And the fear is that if you unleash a super powerful AI, it will make all sorts of decisions, many of which don't have human interests as the core agenda.
Can't you make sure it does?
Well, it's one of those things we're going to have to find out. So a big part of the AI action plan that was unveiled yesterday, the third pillar is about the U.S. leading in diplomacy and security on AI. And rather than starting at the fountainhead, right, rather than going upstream and regulating things that saying, no, we will not create these systems that are of such power and capability. No, you cannot deploy these systems on students and in corporations and infuse them into the government and all these things. Instead of saying no, basically the Biden or the Trump administration is saying, yes, we are going to facilitate and do all of those things. And then if problems emerge, we will begin to put more regulatory measures in place. So they are planning on keeping it under control, but they're going to play with it first.
Joe, go read his book, Dark Eon. It's freaking eerie, but it's true. It's a great book. Joe, thank you, brother. I appreciate you, as always. Have you ever heard of cart narcs? Look, I do the same thing you do. When I'm killing time, I'm in an airport, maybe I'm in bed. You shouldn't do this before bed, but I do it. I go scrolling on social media and look for something that entertains me, right? So, cart narcs. You know this is a passion of mine. I've told you before, I'm not even really joking, that if you could automatically deport every human being who doesn't put their cart back, the country would increase, it would be better exponentially. Just because it tells you, it's revealing of how you look at yourself and your place in the world. Well, we have Agent Sebastian with us now. Cart Narcs is his baby. He's the founder of it. And I'm dying to talk to him. Before we get to him, though, in case you're wondering, maybe you haven't seen it, they expose these people. Here it is.
Oh, look at that. A half curbing. That's not where the carts go, sir. Well, you should, because they want.
Shut your mouth, punk.
What does the sign say at the cart return? Please return carts here.
Yeah, and the cart's right there.
But it doesn't say please return carts there. You're getting a put Magny to shame, sir. Now, sir. Will, as soon as you return your cart. Would you like a magnet instead? Now, sir,
Get your off my car!
As soon as you take your cart.
Get the out of here, mother!
Why are you
Get the out of here! I'll beat your
Sir, no, you won't. Look at yourself. Who's Perry Carabell alive? Look, sir.
shut.
Sir, let me give you 2 because you're being such an angry bones. Where'd that flag go? You know what he's getting? This guy is so angry. He's getting double magnets and the flag. Watch out behind you, sir. What a jerk face.
Joining me now, Agent Sebastian, the founder of Narcs. Okay, Sebastian, I have to know how you even came up with this concept.
Well, it is surprisingly dull, quite frankly. Was me and a friend talking in the office, and we were just asked the question, why don't people do this? You know, what's their problem? And people have been asking this question for decades. I'm not original in that thought, but what I did was I went out and asked people. I just walked up to people, didn't have the vest or the uniform or the magnets or any of that stuff. And I just asked people, and immediately I got violence, all the excuses in the book. People were angry at me, really angry at themselves. Spoiler alert. And so from there, I just kind of said, well, okay, obviously there's something here. There's something ridiculous going on with these people. And I just kind of thought to myself, well, what if that, then what else? You know, the type of person who would do this, there'd be an agency, and one thing led to another, and that's where we are today.
I have to ask, because you're the one who's out there in the field, if you will, seeing these people, meeting these people. Do you notice any kind of a constant theme? And I mean, is it old, young, men, women, white, black? Is there any kind of a consistent theme, or does it just come down to find the self-centered person and there you go?
Well, you're right. You're right to an extent there. It really doesn't matter age, sex, race, socioeconomic, as far as the people who will leave them out. That's across the board. However, the people who were willing to fight me, and what you're kind of seeing here, this guy didn't specifically attack me, but the guy previously did. The guys who are willing to fight me are, number one, guys. And number two, they tend to be like 35 to 55, middle-aged guys who are willing to throw down over a shopping cart. And I think it has to do with they're now at the point in their life where they're the boss. Because I'll go up to like 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they're usually just like, oh, okay. But those older guys will want to battle. And I think it has to do with, they don't want to hear it from me, some dweeb in a vest.
Have you been physically attacked? Surely one of these guys is as big of a nut job to actually throw a swing or something at you.
A lot have tried, even more have promised. But what I tell people is it's really easy not to get in a fight in life in general. Just don't get in a fight. Don't be within arm and fist distance of a person, which is only 3 or 4 feet. And so then people say, oh, you're a wuss, you won't fight. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the whole point. The point of Narcs is not to get in parking lot fights. It is to get people to behave in a civil manner. And again, that's why I say use your words. Don't fight over this stuff. Try to talk through your problems. But unfortunately, some people just don't want to do that.
So how long have you been doing this exactly? And I'm asking really, how long do you intend to do this? Because I geek out on these. I find them to be so hilarious. And every time I see some guy losing his temper, I'll be honest, I worry about your safety a little bit. There's so many psychos out there now. Somebody pulls out a knife or something like that.
Well, that's a fair question. I'm coming up on 7 years, part-time as a hobby or whatever. And people have pulled knives. They've pulled guns, pepper spray, tasers, all that stuff, besides fists and all that other stuff, and throwing stuff, drinks or whatever at me. And yeah, everybody, no matter what you're doing, especially in something that's a physical danger to yourself, there's a retirement age. I don't know what that is yet. Hopefully I'm not forced into retirement via injury, but I do have no plans to stop as of yet.
How do you keep your cool when you're getting cussed at like that? When you called him, I'll be honest, maybe the funniest part was when you called him a lazy bones. It makes me burst out laughing every time. I've seen that clip 10 times. That just murders me.
Well, I think it's my natural demeanor is I'm just a calm, rational person in general. And so I was sort of built for this because I hear that comment. Oh, that's a great observation. As somebody said, I couldn't do card narcs because when somebody started swinging at me and screaming at me and threatening to run me over, I would respond in kind, which I would be to an extent justified in doing so. But like you mentioned, it wouldn't go with the whole mission. The whole mission is to get people to behave civilly. And so a part of it is I'm naturally a calm person, but part of it too is I've done this thousands of times. So I've seen the patterns of behavior over and over again. And I just don't have the need to scream at anybody.
Agent Sebastian, it is cart narcs. Go track them down on YouTube. You will laugh until you cry. Thank you, my man, for the service you do. I appreciate it.